Salim, thank you for taking the time to visit with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Great. And Ef'n and I have done podcasts in the past. We're always excited to talk to people that have great stories about coming over from another country as immigrants and succeeding here in the United States. And when we were talking last time, you and I met recently, and so your name came up, and that's when I asked if you'd be willing to come talk to us because you have a really, really great story. And just wanted to, touch base with you, go through, where you grew up, how you ended up in the United States, and all the challenges you faced to get where you are. And for those of you that don't know you, because you keep a low profile, Mr. Asrawi is the founder and owner of the Texas de Brazil restaurants around the country. And so, Salim, if you could tell us a little bit about where you came from.
Well, I'll summarize it and be brief. So I to this great country from Lebanon in 1981, and I basically came here. My mom brought me here because in Lebanon we had a civil war, and the United States is a safe place, and really, when I came here, I was a freshman in high school. So I came here so I can continue my education and pretty much just live in a peaceful country while I'm studying. So I got here to school in Bryan, Texas. Bryan, Texas. Most people know it because of Texas A&M. So it's Bryan College Station, and I came here in 1981. My view of America was pretty much watching TV in Lebanon. I think back in the late 70s, early 80s, most of us much had four channels. You had to tap the TV and the antenna to get a better reception. So believe it or not, the show Dallas was televised in Lebanon. And I was looking at Dallas and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. Big cars, big Cadillacs, tall buildings, big highways. What a great country. What a great city. I mean, Texas is bigger than Lebanon. Dallas probably is bigger than Lebanon. So my idea, I was pretty excited to come here. Now, Bryan College Station time and still is not like Dallas, is really small. But I came here, I got cowboy boots. I wanted to Americanize myself. I still have an accent, can't get rid of it. I got a cowboy belt. I put my name on the back of it. So, restaurant hotel management was my thing. I enjoy people. It's never monotonous. And my dad in Lebanon had a restaurant, so I kind of grew up around it. But I never thought that this is what I wanted to do. In life, you're just, whatever phase you're in. So at the time, it was high school, and then it was college, and then it was grad school. I think it wasn't until probably my last year in college, people are always telling you, your parents, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with your life? You got to do something, So that's when I decided that I wanted to be in the hospitality industry. And so my last year in college, I was pretty much interested in that. And then when I graduated, after that, I had a master's degree, very proud, that I made it. I never thought that I would really finish high school. I never thought that I would finish college. Mainly because school wasn't the thing for me. I wanted to be out. I wanted to be with friends. I didn't want to sit still and read books and study. But school is important. It's you pass the time and you learn how to mature. So after finishing up at Johnson Wales, I'm like, wow, I got a master's degree. I want to get into management. And, like most kids, you pick a pretty state, and I wanted to go to California. I mean, how can you beat that? California, sunshine. So there was a guy that graduated from Johnson Wales. He worked in the HR at the Ritz-Carlton in Marina del Rey, California. And I called him up and I'm like, hey, I got a degree. He goes, look, we're now this is 1992. He goes, look, we're very full, but I have a waiter position for you in room service. I mean, I'm like, what? I just got a master's degree. I want to get into management. I feel like taking a step backwards. He goes, that's all we have. So I said, you know what? I'll take it because a job is a job to me and learning is learning. So I started, I was a waiter in room service. And then I quickly learned, I worked hard, I got promoted, and I became the room service manager. I then became the executive steward, the assistant, food and beverage director. I did many things, over there. And then after that, I came back to Texas. And at the time, I wanted to, to start a tapas restaurant. Tapas is Spanish food, small dishes. But then, I went to my competitor and I thought, wow, this concept, the churrascaria, works in the States because, in the States, the all you can eat concept is pretty much Sunday brunch in a hotel. And Sunday brunch, yes, the food is amazing, is great, but it's also a lot of the food that, they didn't sell or they had from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So to see Americans eating meat, all you can eat meat, that was an eye opener. And at the time, in 1998, now when I started Tex de Brazil, I think the timing was right. And the churrascaria was in its infancy. I still think it is 25 years later. If you compare it to Mexican food, if you compare it to Italian, to a traditional steakhouse, it's really a fun concept. So, I partnered up with, my uncle came along, my mom came along. It became a family thing. And, 1998, that's when you had dot-com millionaires. The economy was great. So it was really tough to open a restaurant. It was really tough to hire staff, not as tough as the past few years, but it was very challenging. And, fortunate for me that this location, the first location in Addison, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, it made it and it took off, and we were able to open the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth. And 25 years later with 63, 64 locations and going, I feel very fortunate, very blessed. And at the same time, I have great ladies and gentlemen that work with me that enable us to get that far. So that's pretty much, in a nutshell, coming from Lebanon to here. I said I came here for an education. I never thought that I was going to get a job here because, that's like thinking way ahead. I never thought that I would start a business. I never thought that I would have multiple locations, but I wouldn't be able to do that in Lebanon. And the same thing goes for many countries around the world. There are no opportunities. One, the country is too small. But, in this country, you can do anything you want. You work hard. There are great opportunities. And so I feel very, very fortunate to be here. I'm glad my mom brought me here. I'm glad I didn't go to another country. I'm not going to name countries, but I'm so glad, it was in the States.
Little upset with you, Samir.
Uh-oh, now what?
Because he's from Lebanon, but it's the Brazilian steakhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what made you want to do the Brazilian steakhouse?
Well, Efren, so that's a good point that you bring up. So, when we first opened Tex de Brazil in 1998, people would come in and look, honesty is the best. You want to be honest, but sometimes being honest, people frown upon it. So people would come in, I'm talking to people, where are you from? How did you start this? I'm from Lebanon. What? You're Lebanese and you have a Brazilian restaurant? So after a few months into it, I just basically said, you know what? I am Brazilian. I was born in Brazil. I moved to Lebanon when I was very young. Do you speak Portuguese? No, I don't speak Portuguese. Well, look, there is validity to it. My dad did live in Brazil for a few years. His brother, my uncle, he lives in Brazil. He's been living there for 30 plus years. There's a big Lebanese community in Brazil, so there is some kind of connection. And here's the thing, the perception. I get it. Perception. How can you be Lebanese and have a Brazilian restaurant? How can you be American and have a Chinese restaurant? That means your restaurant is no good, you know? But that's the beauty about it, that anybody can
That's
do
right.
whatever they want in this country. And I think also, you know, because, I am not Brazilian, to have a Brazilian concept, it makes you really work harder, and you kind of want to follow, every, inch along the way to make sure that all the recipes and the concept is exactly what they're doing, in Brazil. So, uh, when Brazilians come, when Americans are there, it's as authentic as it can be.
And I mean, I think your location here in McAllen has been here for, I think, a few years, and with this area, it's known as one of the fattest areas in the U.S. It's number one. So when you open any type of restaurant down here, the food has to be good. I mean, we have a very high standard, and the food there is just fantastic. I mean, really good. The service is awesome. What made you want to do the Brazilian type of food over like other foods you could have done? I mean, the Brazilian food looks very complicated.
I mean, look, that's a good question. Why? I think, decisions that you make in life really defines your career, whether it's professionally or personally. So for me, really at the time, back in 98, that's what I wanted to do. I thought it was, look, this concept in Brazil, there's one on every corner. It's pretty much like a Starbucks here on every corner. And then it depends, I mean, just like here, you have some fast casual steakhouses, you have, different scales of steakhouses. They're not all the same. Not all meat is the same. There's different grades. Not all produce is the same. There's different grades. So, in Brazil, they've been doing this for a long time. In the States, you've had in the 80s churrascarias, mom and pop churrascarias, pretty much on the East Coast, New Jersey, New York, but nobody really Americanized it. And when I say Americanized it, it's kind of like what P.F. Chang did to Chinese food. So I've eaten at P.F. Chang. I have no issue with it. I don't sit here to criticize anybody, but, you can go to your local Chinese restaurant and the food is much better than, for example, at P.F. Chang on certain dishes. But you go in there and you say, I want a martini. Maybe they don't know how to make a martini for you. You know what I'm saying? You call up and you say, do you have a private room? I want to bring in some guests. I want to host something. Well, I don't know. Do we have a private room? We don't have one. How can we get one? So, P.F. Chang did a great job in Americanizing Chinese food back then when they started it. So when it comes down to Brazilian, it was really just mom and pop. It didn't really take off. They didn't advertise it. It wasn't to the standards of American restaurants, the way we're used to. And look, the standards here are very high in our restaurants, in our hotels compared to other countries. So at the time in 1998, I felt the concept, the how this can grow because there's not that many like it, and at the time I had one competitor that started in the States a year prior to me. So I thought this is a great opportunity. There's definitely room to grow. Uh, Unfortunately for us, when the broker found me a place, it was less than a mile from my competitor. And some
Oh,
people look
wow.
at it and say, you know what, you've got some balls. You're opening next to your competitor, not even a mile away. That was not my choice. I did not want to be there, but at the time, there weren't any good
Let me
locations.
ask you this. So, when you started the first restaurant, what were the biggest challenges you faced? Because, I have a lot of clients that come to me thinking the restaurant is an easy business, and I try to tell them that it's not an easy business, and I've seen more fail than I do succeed. What were the biggest hurdles you had to overcome starting your, first location?
Yeah, look, anything you do for the first time, there's definitely uncertainty because you don't have history. You can't look back and say, well, January for me was like this, and February and December, etc. And you're right. A lot of people come into the restaurant business. In our case, they would come in and they go, okay, so how much is it per person? And then dessert and drinks. So let me see. At the time, 25 years ago, I think we started with 20 something dollars per person, and now it's almost 50. So they would come in and say, okay, it's this much per person. And wow, this is a Saturday night times 200 people times 250, whatever they can count. Right. And they're like, wow, that's a lot of money. I can do this. Let me just come steal some employees. I will fund it and we open. It's not, nothing is easy. I don't think anything is impossible if you set your mind to it, but nothing is easy. And just like any business, restaurants fail. A lot of businesses and a lot of them don't make it. And there are various factors why. So, for example, starting in a restaurant, opening your first restaurant, nobody wants to lend you money. Banks don't want to lend you money because, especially back then, banks wanted to lend money to, oil and gas, for example. They want to lend money to someone in real estate who's developing something. But restaurants, they didn't want to lend you any money because, I don't know who came up with this, but somebody said, well, you got to wait 5 years. We got to see what happened. If you make it 5 years, that's the restaurant life. If you surpass 5 years, you're going to be successful. So lending, I mean, that's very, very difficult. That's number one. Number two, opening your new business. A lot of people come in and say, well, we want to try, but they only have one location. Let me go somewhere where they have two or three or four. They're better. So you have that challenge. You also, a lot of people have enough money to get started. Once you start, there are no guarantees that your first and second and third week is going to be successful. You have employees that you have to pay payroll. You have to meet your payroll. You have to pay taxes on their behalf. You have to pay rent. Your electric bill is not like an electric bill at your house. Your gas bill is not a gas bill at your house. You have supplies that you have to pay to pay. Your vendors don't extend to you favorable terms. They don't give you 30 days, 45 days. It's pretty much you pay upon receipt. When you get your goods, you got to pay for it. And then a lot of good employees are not going to leave their good jobs to come to you when you are just the new kid on the block, when you're a beginner. So there are many, many challenges, along the way that you have to overcome, because anybody that starts a business, it's not like you have an excess amount of money at your disposal that you can just tap into every week. A lot of people that start businesses just have enough to start. That's pretty much what they budgeted for. So imagine, opening and, you hired staff and on a Monday night, you only have a few tables. Come Tuesday night, the morale is low. You've ordered all this food and nobody's coming. So it's, restaurant business, to anybody who wants to get in it, I would say to them, come in, spend the money in the restaurant. You have less headaches and go do something else, and look, and besides now, not to discourage anybody, but the restaurant business is not what it used to be. A lot of people look at it and say, wow, this is so glamorous. You own a restaurant. It's not that glamorous. Every state that you do business in, the laws are different.
Here's the question. You gave us a little story about all the challenges you faced, but I'm curious how you felt when COVID hit in early 2020. You've got 60 restaurants, and all of a sudden, people can't leave their house, and you don't have your restaurant doesn't seem to be one that caters to takeout.
Yeah,
right.
It's not like you can just make some Chinese food and pick it up.
So many
businesses were able to survive, and some didn't. And the thing is, I think the businesses that survived are the ones that were always fiscally responsible, So if you had your act together running your business, a lot of, challenges come your way. And, COVID was the mother of all challenges. You're able to survive and move forward. But if you are a business that didn't have your act together for whatever reason it is, maybe you're over leveraged, maybe you didn't have, enough cash, maybe your debt to cash ratio was very high. Maybe you were overstaffed for all these years and you burnt your money on payroll. You never controlled your food costs. and you wasted a lot of money. You wasted money on advertisement that wasn't necessary, right? So when something like COVID happened, you have no room for error. And if you didn't run your business well prior years, it's going to be very, very, very challenging, for you to move forward. So we were fortunate because, we had enough restaurants, throughout the country, and we've been doing this for a long time. We're fiscally responsible, and we had enough cash to be able to withstand, the few months, and the uncertainty that came along. But then, when we opened up, and look, I want to touch on something that a lot of people think, the to go. So when the country shut down, they said, well, you can't go into a restaurant, but you can do to go. Well, we've done pickup, we've never done to go. So it's not like it's rocket science, no problem. But a lot of people say, wow, if people can go to restaurants, they're going to do to go. Yes, they did to go. But people don't realize how much Uber, and Postmates and all these deliveries charge. Okay. So let's say, Samir, you order Uber, right? You're getting charged. I don't know what they charge you. Let's say you order $100 worth of food. You're hungry, $100. They charge you a delivery fee, this, that, tip, etc. I mean, I think on the 100, you're paying $10, $15, and I might be wrong. They charge us 20+%, 24%, The restaurant business, our profit margin is no 20% profit. I mean, if you're in the 10, 15, 16, you're doing very well. So somebody's coming to take over 20% from you. And that's just order that I have. So my $100 now is becoming $75, right? And I still have to pay a chef, to pay a cook in the kitchen, to pay somebody, to package it and put it together. So that wasn't a good model for us. Now, this model might be good for someone who sells pizza, where their food cost is not high like us, but the to-go concept with all these fees, especially when you are not open for in-room dining, is really crazy. And I think Uber and company, hey, that's their company. They have a right to do whatever they want and make whatever money they want. But that wasn't at all. It was more of an amenity to our guests than making a penny ourselves.
Wow. I was today years old when I find out that Uber charges the restaurants as well for using like that service.
Yes.
That's crazy.
And look, Efren, they have a right to charge. I mean, look, we're a capitalist society. People can charge, but I mean, 20-something%. I mean, come on, charge 10, charge 12.
And talking about your story, we live in a very weird time right now where a lot of politicians tend to throw out and use immigrants as like a bad thing, like keep immigrants out of this country. What are your thoughts when you hear something like that? When you hear like someone say immigrants go back home or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I came here in 81. I just turned 14, so I'm American as American can be. I love this country. I'm also very realistic. I'm somebody that when I walk out my door, I know that the sky is not always going to be blue. You have nice people, you have mean people, you have people that are racist. You have people that are bullies. And that's not going to change as long as we have human beings on this planet. You're always going to have that. The goal is to make it better. And speaking about immigrants, look, I think immigrants got a bad rap. Here's the thing about immigrants that, Americans don't realize. Some, not all. Okay. America is, Americans are immigrants, maybe not the ones born here, of course, but great grandparents came from other countries and made this country what it is today. So it's a land of immigrants here. And here's one thing about immigrants that come here. We, first of all, and I speak to myself, is, full to be here. I don't take it for granted. I came here as a guest and I worked hard to adapt. I learned the language, I follow the laws, and I love this country and I contribute to this country. And immigrants, when they come here, they work harder than anyone else because they have to prove to themselves and to others, that I am worthy to be here. And when you invite me to come to this great country, I want to show you that I'm worth it. And the other thing is, we come here because we want law and order, because we're escaping lawlessness, we're escaping civil wars, so we want to come here to excel. The last thing we want to do is go back. So we don't want to break the law. We want to contribute, we're not coming here to take anything away from anybody, we want to be here to complement Americans. We want to come here, to continue, the path of this great democracy and the great people that live here, So it's all political, know very well the contributions that immigrants have made to this country. And look, immigration always been a hot topic, different administration. I, as an immigrant, I do not want open borders. I want people to come here legally, But I think the only way, and this is my opinion, I'm not a politician, we as a country, we spend billions and billions of dollars abroad. If you want to tackle immigration from Mexico and everybody that's coming through Mexico, why don't we make our neighboring country? Why don't we invest in our neighboring countries? Why don't we invest in factories in Mexico? Instead of buying everything from China, from Vietnam, from Turkey, buy from Mexico, buy more from Mexico, incentivize companies to open there. So if you have that work there that are going to have a good job, and we're also going to benefit from the good prices that we're going to get from buying from them, you would reduce the immigration issues at the border. Look, in California, they have permit during harvest. There's a lot of people from Mexico and other countries that come legally on a work permit and work because there's not enough workers here, And the same thing could be said about the industry and others, This is a big, big country. And if we want to continue to grow, we need people to do it. And look, again, immigrants are not coming here to take someone's job away. We're not. We're just complementing. There's plenty of jobs.
I noticed a lot of memorabilia behind you. And so I'm wondering, I see basketballs and footballs. Who is your favorite athlete, whether it's someone you respect their game or as a person?
Well, I started collecting, probably like a few years back. I want to say, when I say few years, maybe 10 years ago or 12 years. Prior to that, I was never interested. So back in 1985, I was in Houston and I had a summer job, out of all places, a place called Athlete's Foot. I know these days you wouldn't, name a sports shop Athlete's Foot. So Athlete's Foot was kind of like, a sports shop. You go in, you buy shoe, you buy jersey, you buy whatever. And that Sunday I was working by myself. And who comes in to the store? Michael Jordan. So it was, and remember back then, 1985, you didn't have a cell phone. I think the cell phones were probably like this big if you had enough money to get one. So no phone, no nothing. Michael Jordan came in. And at the time, the Bulls were playing the Rockets. Michael was injured. I think he broke his arm at the time. So he wasn't playing. He came in. That was his second year in the league. He came in to see how his Air Jordan line is doing. Remember, he only won a championship at North Carolina.
Yeah.
He didn't win anything yet in the NBA. So it was just Michael and I. And thank God I was quick. I picked up a poster of him dunking on the Chicago skyline. I didn't have a marker, but I had a blue big pen and I made him sign an autograph to Salim, Michael Jordan, best regard. And from then on, I said, I met Michael Jordan. How can I top that? Who else do I want to meet? When you meet Michael Jordan, your first celebrity,
That's
in
the Holy Grail.
1985.
That's it.
Right. I mean, anyone else. But I have to say, so when somebody comes into Texas de Brazil, we would ask them to sign a wine bottle. And then we got smart and we said, why are they signing a wine bottle? Let them sign a plate. And so, I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of and singers and athletes, over the years. And I want to say my favorite is not necessarily somebody who excelled in their profession, in their sport, but somebody who's got a great character. And, and one of them is our friend, Eric Dickerson. And, I've always been a fan of Eric. I've obviously seen him on TV and he looks like a gazelle. I mean, he's tall. He's got that neck brace. The way he runs is he doesn't run low. He just comes up high. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he comes up. The only thing you see is Eric. Everybody is down blocking. So fortunate enough to meet him. And I met him, over the great game of golf. I suck, by the way. I got a call one day from Coach Edwards, and he's an amazing men's golf coach at Trinity Christian Academy, where my kids go to school here in Addison, Texas. And somebody called him and said, "Hey, you want to play golf with Eric Dickerson?" I'm like, "Eric Dickerson, the football player?" Go, "Yeah." So we went out and played. And look, golf is hard enough. Here comes Eric. He's left-handed. He's hitting left-handed. And so, when you watch golf, you watch this player, that player, everybody has, a different swing. But when you have somebody play left, he's a lefty, that kind of messed up my game. But, going back to character, he's a great guy. He is loyal to his friends. And he's just a good person all around. So, and I met many others as well. But, I would have to say that, Eric is my favorite.
That's good to know. And just for the record, when he watches this, we did not have this discussion before where I'm telling you what to say.
No, yeah. I mean, I know you didn't ask me to plug him in.
Yeah.
So I did this on my own, but it's like the truth.
Oh yeah, sure.
So
yeah.
Salim, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an awesome podcast.
I really want to thank you for your time tonight. Had a great time talking with you. I always enjoy talking with you.
That was awesome. Awesome.
And looking forward to it again.
Likewise, thanks for having me, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Salim.
Thank you, Salim.
Take care.
Thank you.